Race and racial categories are socially constructed. Racial categories group people by skin color and other physical appearance only. The United States recognizes only 6 racial groups. These racial groups have changed over time. The first U.S. Census was taken in 1790, and there were only 2 groups that were counted: free white males and free white females, all other free persons, and slaves. Between 1820 and 1860, a group of mostly Irish, German, and Southern Europeans began to arrive in the United States, often referred to as the first wave of immigrants. By the 1850s, workers from China began to immigrate as well. The 1860 census was adjusted and now reflected 3 racial groups. A second wave of immigrants began to arrive around 1880 from Europe, including millions of Italians and Jews. Shortly after, in 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed, barring additional Chinese people from entering the U.S. In the 1890 census, we see the first appearance of a Chinese and Japanese category, as well as a more detailed category for blacks. An 1891 Immigration Act was approved excluding polygamists, criminals, and the diseased. The following year, however, in January of 1892, Ellis Island opens. After the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery, the 1900 census groups blacks or Negroes, but also their descendants, furthering the nation's one-drop identity rule. Despite growing xenophobic backlash, the 1907 Gentlemen's Agreement allows only a very few specific group of Japanese men, while the 1917 Immigration Act excluded most others with the establishment of a literacy test. In 1920, the census reflects a much more detailed list of those racially grouped as Asian. A quota system was established in the 1920s, giving some countries, mostly within Europe, preferential treatment, while limiting and even excluding immigration from other countries, such as the Philippines. Both the 1920 and the 1940 census saw more specification of the Asian racial group, as well as a change in how blacks were defined. World War II brought labor shortages and the beginning of the Bracero program, allowing Mexican agricultural workers to enter the U.S. It was also during this time that the U.S. officially ends the Chinese Exclusion Act. The 1950 census reflects an unchanging white category, but still has no category for those racialized as Latino. We also see a change from Indian to a new category, American Indian. In 1950, the McCarran-Walter Act brought an end to the exclusion of immigrants from Asian countries. Although not reflected in the census, it was during this time that an influx of Cold War refugees began to immigrate. Changes in the census indicate a growing diverse population, but still leaves out so many others. Operation Peter Pan brought thousands of unaccompanied Cuban children fleeing Castro's communism to the U.S., and the first introduction of a Hispanic category is seen in the 1970 census. This period was marked as well by an influx of Vietnamese and Cambodian Vietnam War refugees. The 1980 census is the most comprehensive list of those people categorized as Asian to date. There's also a reintroduction of Black and not just Negro. With the end of the quota system already established, the 1980s brought amnesty to many of those already living in the United States. In 1986, the Simpson-Mazzoli Act is signed into law, and over 3 million people are granted amnesty. For the first time, respondents can choose more than one race in the 2000 census. Further efforts to grant amnesty to those already living in the United States came with the passing of the 2001 DREAM Act, which created a pathway to citizenship for immigrants brought as children. However, in the aftermath of the terrorist attacks on September 11th of 2001 and the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, immigration law was forever tied to the nation's security. The 2010 census was created with few changes in the categories from the 2000 census. However, the next 10 years would bring new laws that now established a national registry to track those entering and exiting the United States.